I got rice cooking in the microwave. Got a 3-day beard I don't plan to shave. And it's a goofy thing, but I just gotta say.
My name's Ray Stoner. This is a special edition of the Church of the Muzzle Flash. We're dealing with some very serious problems here on the west coast of Florida today. We've talked to the congregation, and the congregation feels that this information is so important, and that's the reason why this is a special edition of the Church of the Muzzle Flash. Mr. Bailey's joining us. He has a wide and comprehensive understanding of the problems and the difficulties that we're encountering here. Since Mr. Bailey came to Florida, which has been, about 7 years ago? He came here from Indianapolis, and of course Indianapolis is a big city in comparison to where we are here on the west coast of Florida at the Warm Mineral Springs, so he has a entirely different viewpoint. And he and I have been discussing at great length the current economic holocaust that the west coast of Florida is experiencing, which was brought about by the people who are in charge here. Now, they may not necessarily have understood what they were doing, but ultimately they were the ones that created all of these difficulties. And in so doing, this has put a real bind on the income, on the tax revenue, on the base, on everything that makes society operate, the government operate, and contributes to the well-being of the people who are the residents here on the west coast of Florida. Currently in Sarasota County, which is unfortunately has been one of the central points for this mortgage crisis, we have approximately 7,000 foreclosures on the books in the city, which are now in the court system. Yep. We also have 4,000 homes that are in inventory that are brand new and either completed or almost completed, and then there's a large number of other homes that the developers have just walked away from because they have been unable to get financing. So we've got a terrific inventory of homes and property that's in need of being sold, and nobody's paying any attention to this, especially not our elected representatives or the people that are supposed to be in charge and regulating this. From Bradenton all the way down to Northport, we must have 6 or 8 different chambers of commerce. Bradenton, Sarasota County, City of Sarasota, City of Northport, City of Charlotte. Venice. It just goes Venice, Englewood, thank you. Yep. All of this money is allocated out of the tax base or from private contributions of people who want to promote Florida, which we do. Right. This is not negative that we're here. Why we're doing this? We're doing this because we love where we live, we love our country, and we don't want what's going on to continue going on any longer. So these Chamber of Commerces all have budget. They spend untold hundreds of thousands of dollars every year promoting Florida, the West Coast, and what we have here. And what do we have? God only knows, because we don't know where this money goes. It goes into a central fund that the state allocates, and all we know is that supposedly we get our fair share. Whether we do or not, that's another question. But the last thing that we need is bad publicity. We're enduring an economic holocaust. We have probably a 20 to 25% unemployment rate here. We have thousands of homes in foreclosure. The homeless are under the bridges by the hundreds. Many of them are veterans, not only from Vietnam, from Desert Storm, and now today we're getting an influx from Iraq and Afghanistan. And I was down at the Warm Mineral Springs today and encountered 2 of these people. They're young people, they're our kids, our grandkids, and they're living in the woods, and they're crazy. They're absolutely crazy because nobody has taken the time to defang and declaw them after they come out of a combat situation. The government takes them here, dumps them off, and says, there you go.
Here's your discharge. See ya.
This is what they did to Drake when he came home from Vietnam. It hasn't been until recently that we've been able to get him into a program, or I should say, he has gotten himself into a program where he has been able to transverse the paperwork set up by the Veterans Administration, which up until this time had prohibited him the access that he needed to the help and the funding in order to be able to undo what was done to him 40 years ago. That's despicable. Absolutely despicable. Anyway, we don't want to dwell on the past here, but to a certain degree, if you don't know what the past is, you don't know what the future is going to be, because you don't know how to conduct yourself in the now. So to bring you up just a little bit to date more on the situation here on the west coast of Florida, specifically in Sarasota County, let me explain to you that this is the 13th Congressional District. Now, we're going out globally on the Church of the Muzzle Flash transmissions here, and consequently this may not be of any importance to you, but nationally here in the United States, the 13th Congressional District in the year 2000 played a pivotal role in the election of George Bush to the presidency of the United States. This 13th Congressional District, we had a representative by the name of Kathleen Harris. She was the one that was responsible for Jim Crowing the election, which allowed George Bush to take the election. And it was also the home of Mark Foley. Now, Mark Foley was, we have to be very careful what we're saying here, so we're going to be very careful. We're not going to say anything. If you want to look up Mark Foley on the internet, look him up and see what it says about him there. But we have a problem with our elected representatives in that they do things that normal people go to prison for the rest of their life. And Mark Foley kept very busy taking the highest motivated children that we have from all over the country that parents and representatives send to Washington so that they can be pages in the Senate and the House of Representatives. And Mark Foley was propositioning and trying to seduce these people. And this is not just one individual, this is hundreds of them. And the majority of them are Republicans, they're pedophiles, they're sexual abusers, and these are the people that we have representing us from the local level all the way up to the national level. In the 13th Congressional District is located the Venice Airport. Again, meaningless unless you're an ex-CIA agent, you're with the Drug Enforcement Administration, or you're a pilot flying for what used to be Air America in Vietnam. But here we have a different name for it. But again, stepping on broken eggshells, we don't want to get into that too much. However, we are saying that at the Venice Airport, this is where the terrorists were trained, Muhammad Atta and the others, that flew their aircraft supposedly into the trade towers in New York City, killing 3,000 Americans and bringing our country into a war in Iraq under fallacious circumstances. This all transpired right here in Venice, and the people that flew these aircraft swam in the warm mineral springs. All of this is a matter of public record. If you don't want to believe what we're saying here on the Church of the Muzzle Flash, because we are a church, remember that. We don't lie, we don't steal, and we don't misrepresent. This is the real McCoy here, and somebody better wake up to what we're saying, because this is where it originated. This is it. Now, you'll have to excuse me, I get a little carried away here. Anyway, the last thing we need is more bad publicity, and yet we seem to be inundated with it. Recently, we had a lot of problems up here in Venice in that the administration was dealing with public matters and private emails, and this wound up in a lawsuit. And this lawsuit is going to ultimately cost the taxpayers of Venice and South Sarasota County approximately $4 million.